Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayemi Maseches KEREISOS Daf Ches. We begin at the Mishnah on Zayin and Beis, around 8 lines from the bottom. It says the Heilige Mishnah, Peles, a woman who miscarries, Lo Oir Shmonim Ve'echad. It's the night prior to the 81st day from her previous birth. So, suppose she gave birth to an Akeva, in which case she proceeds with the following system. The first 2 weeks, she's tummy. Any dam that she sees automatically is tummy. And even without dam, she's tummy on account of that birth for 2 weeks. Any dam that she'll see past that point for the next 66 days, until day 80 including, is considered dam toihar. So it has no tumah status. And at the end of this 80-day process, on day 81 she brings karbanos. As we discussed yesterday, karban leida, and oila, and chatas. Now the halacha is that if she had any additional births or miscarriages within this 80-day period, it is covered under that same single carbon obligation, because it's not considered an independent experience. It's still sort of linked to that first birth way back 80 days ago. But if she has another birth, another miscarriage on day 81, and that's the day that she's already chayav to bring a carbon for that first original birth, so this new experience cannot be covered any longer under that same carbon obligation. Rather, it triggers its own obligation, a new chayav to bring a carbon. So again, if this leida, this hapala, this miscarriage occurs within the 80 days of that original birth, it's covered under the same carbon. So basically, when she's done everything, one carbon for everything. It's all part of the same experience. If it took place on day 81 and onward, after which the carbon obligation for that first birth had already been activated, it can no longer cover additional experiences. They're considered separate, independent, and trigger their own carbon obligation. Now comes an interesting question. What about in the twilight zone, in between? On the night between 80 and 81. So technically, you're out of the woods, you're out of 80 already. You're disconnected from that original experience, but halachically, since you can't bring a carbon at night, you have to wait until next morning. So that carbon obligation was not yet activated, was not yet really triggered. So perhaps you could cover this new birth, this new miscarriage tonight. Still have it covered under that same carbon obligation. So this is subject to dispute between Beis Shammai, who say covered, and Beis Hillel say no, it triggers its own obligation. She gives birth at night, the night prior to day 81. So it's beyond the 80, but it's not yet 81. Beis Shammai poitrim mina carbon. Beis Shammai say you're exempt from a new carbon. It can still be covered under that single carbon obligation. We're still mechayvin. According to Beis Hillel, she has to bring a carbon for the first birth, a new carbon for tonight's birth. Amru Beis Hillel, they turn to Beis Shammai. Why? Ma'ishna or shmonim ve'echad miyem shmonim ve'echad. How would you differentiate between tonight and tomorrow? Look, im shiva lo l'tumah, we find that tonight is equated with tomorrow regarding tumah. Suppose she sees blood tonight. Since she's out of the 80, it starts a new slate, a new record. And the dam is tummy, just like if she would see dam tomorrow, it would be tummy. Apparently, it's a new record. Lo yishvil lo carbon, why wouldn't it be similar to tomorrow regarding carbon as well? And just like a leida tomorrow on day 81, all agree would trigger a new obligation, likewise tonight. Amru lahem Beis Shammai, they turned to Beis Hillel and they said, Loi, you can't compare tonight to tomorrow. Sure. if it occurs tomorrow, it triggers a new obligation. Sheken yatsa l'sha shiru uyil havi carbon, because tomorrow is a time that you can bring a carbon. She's already emerged from the first experience onto a new record. It's a time that you can bring a new carbon. So, a time that you can bring a carbon, so that carbon from the first experience had already been activated, been triggered, and can no longer be used to cover more experiences. As opposed to, if it occurs the night prior to 81, which is still premature, she hasn't yet emerged to a moment which is suitable for carbon, meaning the original carbon had not yet been activated. So it hasn't yet been activated. So why not push in some more and have it covered by that same carbon? It's not yet considered a brand new experience, it's still covered under the old experience. Amr lahen Beis Hillel. Okay, so Beis Hillel respond. What about if it happened on Shabbos? You can't bring a carbon on Shabbos. Let's say it's day 81, but it's Shabbos. Are you going to also insist that it's covered under the same carbon? Because technically she can't bring a carbon today, so it hasn't yet been activated? Suppose this hapala took place on day 81, which turns out on Shabbos. That will disprove your argument. Because it's not yet a time for carbon. Carbon, and all agree that she's chayav a new carbon for today's experience. Amalan Beisham respond, no, you can't ask from Shabbos. Even Martem, even if you say that, yes, you're right, day 81 on Shabbos is a brand new experience. You know why? Because although you can't bring private karbanis, but it's a time for karbanis in general, for public karbanis, so it is carbon enabled, and technically does already trigger her first carbon obligation, and no longer allows for coverage of more experiences under that carbon. It's not fit for a private carbon. So all agree it's a brand new slate. As opposed to this woman who miscarried on the night prior to 81. Nighttime is not suitable for carbon at all. So it's still linked to the previous experience, still linked to the previous days. She hasn't yet emerged onto a new track. Nighttime is not fit for any carbon, private or public. That's why we insist that it's still linked to the previous experience. And that first carbon could serve as an umbrella carbon for all these experiences, including tonight. Now, regarding your question of the blood, because you sought to prove that tonight is a brand new track, proving it from the fact that if she sees Dam tonight, she's Tameh, evidently. She left. She disconnected from that first birth experience. Because otherwise, her Dam would be Tahar. Which is the case until day 80, right? And you can't prove from the blood. I'll give you another example. Let's say she's mapel within the Malois, within the 80-day count. It's called the Yemei Malois, right? So if she sees plain blood, it's tar, but if she miscarries, all agree the blood is tamei. It's a known halacha. So what do we see from there? That you can have dam which is tamei, and still it doesn't mean that it will obligate her a new carbon for this new miscarriage. Of course she's exempt from carbon because it's within 80 days. All agree. We learn from a pasuk later, all agree. Any additional birthing experiences are covered under the same carbon if in fact they're linked to the original experience, to the original birth. So within 80 days, Amish is talking about the night of the 81st, but within day 60, let's say, all agree it's covered, despite the fact that her blood is tummy. So you see that dam and carbon aren't really linked to each other. Okay, so again, Anisha gave birth. Once her 80 days are up for the Nekeva, the Chiv carbon is activated, which she brings into 81. And regarding additional birthing experiences, are they covered under the same carbon? If it's within 80 days, of course. If it's on the 81, of course not. What about the night of the 81st? Beis Shammai say covered. Beis Hillel say not covered. Return to the next slide. Tanya, we have a brisa. What is Beis Hillel's reason for obligating a new carbon on the experience that occurs on the night of the 81st? Amr Len Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. We have a pasuk. Harei Omer. It says oy lavas, and some learn the extra oy that we're focusing on. That's coming to cover this case. The rabbis or Shmona ve'echad to tell you that this experience of the night prior to 81 garners its own carbon. So according to this brisa, it's based on a pasuk. Now, really, you can consider two options in terms of the reasoning for Beis Hillel obligating a new carbon. On the one hand, you can say night and day are synonymous. There's a term for it in the Gemara, Laila ein mechusas zman. It's not lacking in time. It's not premature. Although technically you can't bring a carbon at night, but it's, the night leads into the day. Throughout, the Torah, we consider the night leading into the next day. So it's close enough. You've already started to experience the next day, even though technically you can't bring a carbon. You have to wait until daybreak. Laila is already considered like tomorrow. That's one way to look at Beis Hillel. And that's why you don't differentiate between the night of the 81st and the 81st by day. It's all one and the same thing. It is considered as though the Zman of the original carbon has already arrived, been activated, been triggered, and any additional experiences generate their own new obligation. Now, this would apply to our case of an Isha giving birth. It can apply to other cases as well, where we have similar situations. We have a day count, and then the next day bring a carbon. What happens in between? Is it still linked to the previous days, or is it a new experience? We have Azav. Halacha is that if a man sees an emission, triple emission 3 times, he has to count 7 clean days, after which he brings a carbon on the next day, on the 8th day. What happens if he has another experience in between? So if he has it within the 7 days, all agree it's linked to the previous experience, doesn't trigger a new carbon. If he has it on day 8, too late. Brand new experience, brand new carbon. What happened the night in between? Between 7 and 8. So you add a 7, but you haven't yet arrived at day 8, which is this man of carbon. It's a very similar type of equation to our Mishnah. So if you work with the concept that Laila and the following day are one and the same, so it's too late. You're already out of your initial experience. You've already activated your carbon for that. You have to bring a new carbon for the new experience. Laila ein mechusas zman. On the other hand, you can say, no. The basis for Beis Hillel is not this svara of Laila ein mechusas zman, which can be applied to a Leda, to Ziva, to a Nazir, we'll see later. Rather, no, nighttime is mechusas zman. It's lacking in time. It's premature, it's early. It doesn't relate to tomorrow, because it's not yet the time for the carbon. So when it comes to a Zav, the experience that he had the night between 7 and 8 can still be linked with the previous experience, and there's no new obligation. It's just that by the woman giving birth, we have an extra pasuk. Oy lavas, l'rabbis, or Shmona ve'echad is an exception to the rule, and here there's a new carbon. So the two ways to look at it, we'll see how the Gemara will approach it. So far we have the brisa, that it's a new halacha, an exception for later. But it wouldn't apply equally to a zav. Now what happened? Rabbi Yoshia was a regular Talmud by Bar Kapara. Rabbi Yoshia havashchiach k'mei Bar Kapara. Shavke, one day they decided to switch yeshivas and to go to Rabbi Chia. So he left Bar Kapara, Vasa k'mei Rabbi Chia, came to Rabbi Chia. Yom echad, Pogabei, one day, Rabbi Yoshia meets up with Bar Kapara, his former Rebbe. So he figured, okay, let me ask him a shayla. Let me take the opportunity. What happens to a zav? Zav shara gimoriyos. He had a triple emission. Bilel ches, the night prior to day 8. Ma Beis Hillel. How would Beis Hillel treat the situation? What are the factors? As we explained. Tamai de Beis Hillel mapelas b'layla. The reason why Beis Hillel obligate the woman a new carbon if she miscarries the night prior to day 81 is because of that special pasuk. But typically you would not obligate a new carbon. But a zav in a similar situation had this new experience the night of the 8th would be exempt. The loy miyatri kroy, we don't have extra psukim for that. And nighttime, which is not a zman of carbon, is still connected, is still linked, it still identifies with the previous 7 days. So it's all covered under the same carbon. Or lo yishna, perhaps no difference. Because the basis for Beis Hillel is the concept of Laila ein mechusas zman. Nighttime, leading into the day of carbon, is not considered premature. It's not early enough. It's already connected to the next day, in which case the chi of carbon is already triggered, and whatever happens now going forward earns its own chi of carbon, whether it's the isha by the leda, whether it's the man by the ziva. Amar lei bar kapara, bar kapara responded. He says, "Ma Bavli omer b'davazeh." I know you moved on to bigger and better things, to Rabbi Chia. What is the Bavli? They called him the Bavli because he ascended from Babel to Eretz Yisrael. So he referred to him like that. He said, "What does the Bavli say? What does the Rebbe say about this?" Ishtik, Rabbi Hoshea, Lemar Klum. So Rabbi Hoshea did not respond. Amalei bar kapara. Amalei, so in fact, Rabbi Hoshea responds. Bar kapara called his Rebbe. Bar kapara, he says, "You should know. Don't negate Rabbi Chia. He's a big expert on brises and tzrichen." Anu l'divrei ayah. They used to call him ayah instead of chia. Some couldn't express the ches, they call it ayah. So in any case, we need him. And he was referring to the brisa we had on the beginning of the Amud, which was disseminated by Rav Chia, Rav Shia, right? It was they are the ones who. So we need his brises. Rav Chia has what to teach us. Meaning, from that brisa, we will have indication that in fact it's based on the pasuk. So in general, nighttime is too early. Laila is mechusas zman. In which case, by the zav, the triple experience at night is still linked to the previous days. It does not deserve its own carbon. It's just by the later we have the pasuk, the exception. Fine. Continues to go on. Let's go back and review the earlier discussion, meaning let's go back to that brisa, which gives us a pasuk, to tell you that the woman is chayiv a new carbon for what happened the night of. Perhaps it's subject to machlekes tanaim in terms of what in fact is the basis for Beis Hillel obligating new carbon. As we explained, there are two ways to look at it. Is it because nighttime is mechusas zman, it's still too early in the game, and it's still linked to the previous experience, in which case by the zav it can be covered, except by the woman we have a special pasuk to obligate. On the other hand, we can say, no, Laila ein mechusas zman. Nighttime is not premature, it's already considered having entered the next day. And it's a new experience, a new carbon, whether it's by the leda or by the zav. Katana is zav shara gimoriyas bilel ches. Okay, so we have our zav, who experienced 3 emissions the night of the 8th. So let's picture it. He had 3 emissions. He had to count 7 days, 7 clean days. After which he would bring a carbon on the next day. The night of the 8th, he saw another 3. Can it be covered under the same carbon or not? Tani chada, maybe. One brisa says, new carbon, new experience. Tani idach maybe. Another brisa says, no, need not bring a new carbon. It's covered. My love Tanoi, perhaps this is the machlekes Tanoim. Though the Tani maybe, the first brisa which says bring, because savar laila ein mechusas zman. Night and the next day are one and the same thing. So he's added the first experience. It's a brand new carbon. Well, the Tani ein maybe. The second brisa which says, don't bring a new carbon because Savar Laila Mechusas Zman. Laila's too early, it's premature. You haven't yet activated your chi of carbon on the first experience, so you're still linked to it and covered by it. Amar Avhuna Bar Acham Rav Lazar. No, you don't have to say that. Hani Tanai, perhaps both opinions. Sabri, they hold Laila Mechusas Zman. the night of the 8th is still too early. It's still linked to the previous experience, the previous days. Well, the Sani maybe. So how do you explain the first price that he has to bring a new carbon? Why isn't it covered under the first carbon? The answer is there was never a carbon to begin with. B'zav bal beis riyos. What happened was, we thought that he had 3 riyos, which triggers a carbon. No. The Rice is talking, he only saw an emission twice. The law is like this. If a fellow has 1 emission, it's only a 1-day tumah until tonight. He's toivel, waits for sunset, and he's done and over with. If he has a double emission, his halacha has to wait 7 clean days, after which there's no carbon needed. If he has 3 emissions, then he needs to wait 7 clean days plus a carbon on the next day. We're talking about a fellow who only saw 2. There was no carbon to begin with. Of course, if he has a triple riyah now, of course he has to bring a carbon. There's nothing to cover it. It's about the Sani, and maybe the other writer which says it's all covered under the same carbon. It's talking about there was a carbon. He had a triple riyah to begin with, and of course, since he has a chiv carbon for that, it covers everything that happens until the 8th. So I was doing more zav bal beis riyos, ma'ila memra. So according to you, the first price is talking that he only had a double emission. And of course, obviously, then why even discuss it? There's no carbon to cover the new experience. How come Ashman, the point of the price is to highlight the timing aspect? I should know. The only reason why he's chayven a carbon for the triple experience tonight, the night prior to 8, is because he has already completed the 7 clean days. So in fact, it's a brand new experience. He's chayv a carbon. But let's say he would have had this triple experience throughout the 7 clean days, which he's observing on account of the double re'iyah, the original one. Guess what? He'd be putter from carbon, because it's embedded in that first experience. Dafka rob lilches, only because he had this triple experience on the night of the 8th. I'll be moment design, but suppose he had it backtrack a couple of hours ago, on day 7. That certainly identifies with that initial double emission. Lloyd, there's no new carbon. So although there's no carbon at all, you're right. Because he holds kol re'iyah sheseseres enim avil days carbon. Any experience which nullifies a count, halacha is that he has to observe 7 clean days. If there's anything going on there, it just nullifies it. It cancels it. So anything that happened during that 7 days, during those 7 days, is certainly connected to that initial experience. And there's no new count. There's no new. Even if it's a triple riyah, and it's the first time you had a triple riyah, there's no carbon. The question only begins if you're done with your 7 days, and it's the night of the 8th, and now he has a triple experience. So of course he's chayv a carbon, because again we're talking that he never had a carbon to begin with. So according to what you're explaining, second brisa, there's no new carbon for that triple night of the 8th experience, is because it's covered under the same original chiv carbon, because he had a triple riyah way back a week ago. The night of the 8th is still linked to the previous experience. So I have a question. Coming up on Amud Beis, on the Daf Tes, we have a Mishnah. And this example should have been stated there as well. It should have been listed Gabe amongst the cases of Chamisha, 5 individuals, Mivin carbon echad alaveres harbe. You can actually bring 1 carbon to cover many issues. Here's another example. 1 carbon for multiple experiences, because it wasn't clear cut. Because it's not going to hold true in every situation. One doesn't hold true. So we spoke about a fellow who had a triple experience. Waited his week. It's the night of the 8th. He has another triple experience. It's covered under the same carbon. Fine. Now let's say he did not have all 3 experiences, all 3 emissions tonight. Only 1 tonight and 2 tomorrow. So again, if he has all 3 tomorrow, of course, it's a new chiv carbon. What if it's 1 tonight, and that single experience should be covered by the previous, experience, right? It's still the night of. 1 tonight and 2 tomorrow. The halacha is, since the majority of the 3 are tomorrow, which is a time of chiyuv, which is a new record, it corrals that first experience of the previous night and gets a total of 3, and you chayv a new carbon. Versus if you had twice tonight and one tomorrow, since the majority of the 3 is tonight, you're potter. So it goes based on roiv. Suppose you had one emission tonight, the night of the 8th, who pays behavior and the following 2 tomorrow for a total of 3, maybe he will bring a carbon. It's as though he had the full experiences, tomorrow on the 8th. Because most, 2 out of 3 were tomorrow. Maybe if 2 were tonight and 1 tomorrow, since the majority were tonight, is potter. Interesting chiddush. So again, despite the fact that the first experience is sort of covered, because it happened that night. But since 2 out of 3 happened tomorrow, the 2 can sort of invite that first one over, include it in their count, and now he has 3 outstanding on day 8, new carbon. Omar Yosef Teida. Says Rav Yosef, right on. I'll even back that up with a proof of my own. The achas b'layla maybe that if it's 1 at night and 2 the next day, he has to bring a new carbon. Look at a regular standard Zav experience. 1 emission, another one, another one. It's considered a triple emission. 7 days, a carbon. Why? Suppose a person only has 1 single emission. It's called shechazer ba'alma. It's like zera. It doesn't have the status of ziva. It's not metamehim in a grand way. Like we said, 1 riyah, even of ziva material, is only a 1-day tumah until tonight. So, despite the fact that it's not really a qualifying ziva experience, but suppose it's followed by 2 and 3, it sort of reawakens and relabels that first emission and turns into the first of 3 ziva experiences. So we see that sometimes the first experience, the first emission, is sort of considered like a pending experience. For the time being, it's sort of dormant, and then it can be relabeled and upgraded and connected to the number 2 and 3 and give a new status. Likewise over here, the first emission, which happened during nighttime, even though it on its own is exempt, it's covered under the previous carbon obligation, but if on the following day it's followed by 2 more experiences, they invite him over. And now he's upgraded and relabeled as number 1 of the 3 ziva experiences, which trigger a new carbon. Very interesting correlation. So he says, in general, if a person has 1 riyah, a regular person, consider shechva zera, but then when he adds 2 more experiences, they all connect. And now he has a total of 3. Likewise over here. Not so simple. You're comparing 2 cases. Well, you can really wedge them. You can separate them. Midi-eri. How can you compare one case to the other? Riyah Rishayna shel zav. In your standard first emission of a zav, you're right, although technically it's not yet ziva, but the circumstances, the context would allow for a ziva. It's a regular day. It can turn into a ziva. Chazi b'zman chiyuva. It's a time of chiyuv. There's nothing inherently wrong with number 1 except for the fact that it's only 1. So yeah, it can then be relabeled and reclassified as the first of 3 zivas. But achas b'layla, in our case, where the first one was at night, which is inherently a disqualifying time. Kiva the lav b'zman chiyuv chazi, saw it in a time which is not chiyuv, meaning it's still sort of covered under the old umbrella. We love that Shmini Rabbi Yechon. If not for Rabbi Yechon teaching us that, yes, it can actually connect to tomorrow's experiences and trigger a chiyuv, I wouldn't figure it on my own. I would think like this, that you can't combine it. So you need Rabbi Yechon to teach us that. It's not so simple. Okay, so what did Rabbi Yechon teach us? He seemed to hold that Laila is Muchos Hazman, which means to say the night prior to 8 is considered premature, and tonight's experience doesn't have its own independent, record. It's still covered under the previous experience, except when it's only 1 tonight and the majority tomorrow. Then yes. Is it true that Rabbi Yechon himself is of the opinion that Laila is Muchos Hazman? You haven't yet arrived into tomorrow's era. We find that Rabbi Yechon himself seems to say otherwise. The night prior to 8 is considered like you've entered the 8th day territory. Chizkiah teaches us, now we shift to a totally new case of a nazir. A nazir He was meant to keep away from tumah. He became tumah. He has a similar situation. He has to count the 7 days. The following day brings a carbon. Now, if he became tummy within the 7, touched more tumah, of course it's covered under the same. But let's say it's already day 8. It's a new chiv carbon. It's a new nazir, it's a new count. What if it's the night prior to 8? The same kind of situation. As the isha, as the zav. Maybe if you got tummy on day 8, it triggers a new carbon. It's a new nazirus experience, a new carbon. But maybe, but the night of the 8th, it's still covered under the previous carbon. Rabbi Yechon Amar, no, I feel maybe even happened at night. It's the night leading into the day of carbon, brand new experience. And that contradicts Rabbi Yechon Bayas, who says the nighttime is still linked to the previous days. Well, says the Gemara, his own personal opinion is that the night leading into the next day is already considered part of the next day. Rabbi Yechon, however, in our discussion, is simply relating to the opposing opinion, which he himself doesn't hold of. Kikam Rabbi Yechon. True. What Rabbi Yechon presented that Beis B'layla v'achas b'yamin, maybe if 2 emissions of the Zav happened at night and the 3rd by day, and maybe he doesn't have to bring a new carbon because it's still connected to previous days. He was related to those who say that nighttime is still early, it's still premature, still connected to the previous days. Although I myself, Rabbi Yechon myself, I hold differently. Says the Moldiver, I'm a pshita. Well, if he's related to their opinion, obviously, why does he have to even state it as a halach? I mean, he's just reiterating a shita that we all know. Well, it's not so simple. He was trying to highlight these cases of the 1 and the 2 and the 2 and the 1. He was trying to highlight that point that when there was only 1 emission tonight and 2 tomorrow, even though the first one, according to my opponent, is exempt, it can still be corralled and combined with tomorrow's experiences and trigger a new chiv. Perhaps there's room to think otherwise. Given the lav zman chayuva kachazli, since he saw the first emission in an exempt time, lo testar, he cannot use it and combine it to the next 2 of tomorrow. The point is he could, as we explained. So, in conclusion, we have 3 similar type of discussions, sort of twilight experiences. We have the isha who gave birth to an akeva. Once her 80 days are up, on day 81 there's a carbon. Anything that happened within the 80s are covered under the first experience. Anything that happens on day 81 is not covered. What happened on the night of the 81st? Beis Shammai covers, Beis Hillel does not cover. Now there's 2 ways to learn Beis Hillel. Is it because Lila is not Mechusas Man, which means to say it's as though you've already entered into the next era, to the next experience, to the next time zone, in which case you have a new carbon. And this would apply equally to the Isha with the Leda, to the Zav of the Gemuriyas, to the Nazir as well. Or do we say Lila is really Mechusas Man? You haven't yet entered the next time zone. It's just that by Leda we have a special pasuk to obligate you. Okay, so that was our discussion. We had Machlekes and we had this opinion. We had a Chiddush Rabbi Yechon with the 1 and the 2 and the 2 and the 1. Okay, says the next Mishnah. So an Isha who has an uncertainty. We discussed this yesterday. Whether what she miscarried was a qualifying fetus, which is considered halachically like a birth or not, we're not sure. What happens? She brings it's a special system for a suffix. She'll bring an oila, which is not an issue because even if you're not chayv, an oila can bring as a donation. But the chatas is problematic because typically a chatas is only brought when you chayv a chatas, and the kohanim eat it. Even if it's a bird, they eat it. But when it's a suffix, there's a special dispensation. She can bring it on account of suffix, and you offer it on the mizbeach. But the meat you burn or we discussed in the end of Mesechus tomorrow. What if she has multiple issues, multiple uncertainties? She has 5 uncertain births. She has 5 possible Zava experiences. She lost count of her days. She's not sure what she's a Zava, what she had, triple experiences, Dam, and which would trigger a carbon. What does she do? The answer is, if it's a suffix, one covers it all. It's like, a person who's tamei. Even if he touched many times, he goes to the mikveh once, he's done. Same thing over here. Because the whole thing is really very challenging situation to bring a carbon when you're a suffix. So we say, look, get away with one, and you covered it all. Maybe a carbon echad. She brings just one pair of birds, one carbon. She has access to carbonis now. She can eat. She's done. Vein ashar le'achayva, and she doesn't bring the rest. What about Hezives Vadois? She was certainly a Zava 5 times over. Ladies Vadois, and gave birth 5 times over. In this case, she has to bring 5. So she brings 1 to give her access to carbonis, but she has an account. She's an outstanding balance. She has to bring the rest. Now, turns out because there was such high demand for birds to cover all these experiences, the price was jacked up to an unreasonable level. Turns out that once the birds in Yerushalayim were so high priced, v'dinar zov. So a kan is a pair of birds, and it was going for a dinar zov, a gold dinar, very expensive. And that would make it very difficult for people to afford, and perhaps they would disregard the chiv of carbon because of the high prices. Omar Rabban Shimon Gamliel. So as a caring community leader, he says, look, I'm not going to rest until the price drops drastically. Hamoin hazeh. He made an oath. The name of the Hashem, the Shekhinah that rests in this dwelling, the Beis HaMikdash. I'm not going to sleep tonight. And Shiyeh b'dinar, until it drops to dinarin, the silver coins. Silver coin is worth a 25 silver coins and 1 gold coin. I'm not going to sleep until there's a drastic price drop on this. So what did he do? Nichnas lebezn v'limid. He went into the bezn and he taught as follows. A woman has all these obligations. Don't worry. 1, take care of it all. Rashi says, even though he was being lenient in matters of Torah, he says, sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes in order to preserve the Torah, you have to sort of give way a little bit. Because otherwise people would not bring their karbanos. It would be even worse. So he taught like this: Mevia carbon echad. She brings only 1 carbon. She can have carbonos. Ve'ein hashar le'achayva, and she need not bring the rest. We'll treat it like going to the mikveh. You do 1 mikveh on account of everything, and guess what? It did the trick. Suddenly there was a huge price drop. The birds dropped. So 2 pairs of birds were now costing Riv Asayim 2 quarters of a silver coin. So basically, pair of birds went down from costing a gold coin to a quarter of a silver coin, which is 100th of the previous price. Tan Rabba. Hey ladies vadai. We have a brisa. She has 5 certain births. Hey zives safik. And 5 uncertain ziva experiences. Oi. Hey ladies vadai, v'hei ladies safek, or 5 certain births and 5 uncertain births. So since she has 2 separate issues to contend with, she has the certainties and the uncertainties. So you need a different type of carbon per. She'll bring a pair of birds for this, and a pair of birds for that. Mevia base kiddush, she brings 2 birds, 2 pairs. Achas alavad, achas alavad. I want to address the 5 certainties and 5. The other one to address the 5 uncertainties. Shavada nechal, the one that's vade zit medekayanam. It's a regular carbon. Shal lechayv, and she has to bring the rest when she gets around to it. Shal safek in nechal, the one that's being brought on account of these sveikos. You don't need it. Veina shal lechayv, and she doesn't bring the rest. But you definitely need 2 carbons. 1 to address the vadai category, 1 to address the list of safek. Because it's a different type of system. Rechem nuri aimer. In this case, she has to make sure to express something. Alavadai, the one that she's bringing for the vadai experiences, she has to express and say it's for the last one. Because he treats it like a person's chayiv a carbon chatas. Let's say sin many times. You have to address them all till the last one. So here as well, she says this is for the last one, so it covers it all. Everything until the last. V'tipata. Shal Safek, however, the one that's brought for the Safek, here's another halacha. Yesh vada b'neim. Another halacha that he says is like this. Let's say she has a mix. Some vadai births, some Safek births. So according to him, you don't have to bring one for the vadais and one for the Safek. Just bring one. If there's a vadai amongst them, that sort of runs the show. You bring one carbon for the vadai and covers the Sfeikas as well, because they're sort of secondary to the vadai. Interesting chiddush. Vim lav. If you don't have a vadai amongst the uncertainties, you only have uncertainties, so she brings one pair and she says whatever it is, it applies to whatever. She doesn't have to specify for the last one. In this case, that's not required. Like we said, it's like jumping into the mikveh for multiple tumas. Just jump in and you're done. There's no need to stipulate at all. Even when you bring for vadais, just bring one for everything and you're good for now. Whether you're bringing for multiple vadais or multiple suffix, just bring the pair of birds, and you don't have to stipulate that it's for the last vadai. You have to bring one for the vadai family, one for the suffix family, but you don't have to stipulate anything. Now, what's the machlekes about? Why would you have to stipulate? Why not? Let me present you an explanation from Rav. What's the machlekes? With these tanoim. So he says, look, if you have several vada experiences, it's like a person's chayiv several carbon chatas for turning on the light many times. The man the chayiv chatois, a person's chayiv multiple chatois, adam aisikulan v'soif machapa until he brings them all to the last one. Only then does he get a kapara. Chanami here as well. It's no different. Meaning, if you're addressing multiple vadais, you have to address up until the last ones. You have to stipulate for the last one covers everything. He says no, it's compared like immersing in a mikveh. You don't have to stipulate which one. It's an automatic system. You have 5 reasons to be tevel, it's done. The man a person has to be tevel for 5 reasons. Jump in one time, you're done, you're tired. Here as well, there's no difference. You don't have to label it, address it, direct it to any one experience. Just bring the carbon, you're done. Says Rav Papa, how could you say that pshat? Compares it to the chatas experience. So then, we're in trouble. Because, when you have to bring a chatas for a inadvertent violation, on the flip side, if you're not sure, you bring an asham tali. Now, if you have 5 experiences, just like you have to bring 5 chatas, you have to bring 5 ashams. You can't have one asham tali cover everything. So, for really comparing this pair of birds by a suffix leda or suffix ziva to your standard chatas and asham tali, arrangement, you would get in trouble here. You can't just get away with one asham tali for many uncertain, violations. Likewise, you can't get away with one pair of birds for many suffixes. If you compare it to the chatas asham system, if she has a list of sveikes, birth or whatever, she brings one pair of birds and she's done. She brings one uncountable. How does that work? Theoretically, the person would be chayiv to bring 5 asham talis. He could be exempted with just one? Of course not. About time we have a brisa. They're separate and distinct. One per experience. Here's the rule. Any situation which warrants a differentiation, a separation between the carbon chatas, meaning 5 times flipping the switch, 5 times chatas. Likewise, if there's any degree of uncertainty, it's 5 karbanis asham tali. So you can't really equate our women with a regular chatas of asham situation. The answer is like this. It's very different over here. She didn't really sin. It's a whole different system. It's called mechusa kapara. So we're going to see in the next Mishnah. She had an experience which requires a carbon to cleanse her and to give her access to eating karbanis, going in the mikdash. So it's like immersing in a mikveh. It's a tahara process. And therefore, one tefillah, just like one tefillah addresses multiple tumais, technically one pair of birds addresses everything. Even 5 experiences of Leda and Ziva. It's just that when you have 5 for sure, you have to bring all 5, but 1 is very sufficient to cleanse her, give her access to karbanos, but she has an outstanding balance, which she'll bring later. So all agree, that's the way we view this bird bringing obligation. Tefillah, medam alone. All agree, we compare it to immersion in a mikveh. So that begs the question, why is it going to Rabbi Yechim? You have to go and label it, this is for the first, for the last, what's the point? It's just a personal concern that we have. This is what we're concerned about, disregarding her outstanding balance. She had 5 ladies. She needs 5 pairs of birds. Technically, temporarily, 1 is enough to cleanse her, enough to give her access to karbanos, but she has an outstanding balance. We're concerned that she'll disregard the rest. Look, I'm good to go. She'll forget about the rest. So that's why we obligated to make this statement. Well, this is for the last one. This way she keeps mindful that she has other ones still outstanding. We're not concerned about pshia. We don't have to make her, stipulate it. And rest assured she'll bring the rest. Okay, so we have the halacha, the Isha gives birth. She brings Eila and a chatas. If it's a vade leda, then the chatas is consumed by the kayhanim. If it's a safek leda, then we treat it like a chatas abala safek. We throw it into the drain, but we process it as a carbon. What if there are multiple experiences? If they're vade, she has to bring them all, but 1 is enough to get her going at this point. If they're safek, 1 covers it all. Begin a new parak. Parak Sheni of KEREISOS, says the Mishnah. Oh, our topic. We have 4 situations, 4 individuals who are considered mechusar kapara, which means to say that they've experienced something which triggers a cleansing purification process, which includes bringing karbanos. After which they can return to the Beis Hamikdash, they can eat, kachim. Arba mechusar kapara, they're lacking kapara, which means to say until they bring their carbon, they're not fully cleansed. Another item on this number 4 list, totally unrelated. There are 4 people who will bring a carbon, typically bring a carbon chatas for a mistake, and they'll bring it even if it's zadain, if it was a mazid. Just like you bring on a shaygi, they'll bring on a mazid as well. Okay. Who are the 4 mechusar kapara? Hazav, v'hazava, v'yeledes hamitzera. Interesting that when it comes to ziva, we split the man from the woman. Hazav is 1, zav is 2. But when it comes to mitzera, although it applies to men and women equally, they're covered under the same number. The Gemara will discuss this. I have 2 more. Mechusar kapara, ger, a convert. Mechusar kapara is considered as such, until the blood of his carbon, of his oil, gets processed. And another item is the nazir. He's only complete when he brings his carbon, and that gives him access to wine, to his haircut, to his tum. Asks the Gemara, why is it when it comes to zav and zav we split them into 2 numbers? And the reason is because their tumah experience is really very different. Mishum de chaluka tumasan. The man's ziva is very different than the woman's. Why? Different halachas. The zav mitame b'oinus by a man, if it's an unnatural, if it was triggered by some other factors, he's not tummy. Let's say overeating or whatever, that doesn't count. The sanyim psara, it has to be. Rashi says psar mekoyach ivara, imtakavir from his yetzer, it has to be a natural. It's not due to external reasons. Number 2. The emissions of a zav, the tumah of a zav, is dependent upon experiences, re'iyos, how many times he saw. So if he sees 3 times, even the same day, he's a full-fledged zav. It's not related to, necessarily related to days, as opposed to by a woman. It's about days. For her to become a full-fledged zava, she has to have an experience on 3 consecutive days. So it's about days, not about experiences. Different system. The Sani we have a brisa. Tola hakasav as a zachav is by a man it depends upon experiences. By a woman it's totally in days. V'zava matama boinus. V'lei matama biris could be yavim. So again, by the zav, it has to be a natural thing, and it's experience oriented, not day oriented. By a woman, it's just the opposite. Matama boinus. By her, even if there are external factors to attribute it to, she's tamei. V'lei matama biris could be yavim. It's not about riyah; it's about days. So I understand why the Mishnah counted them separately. Okay, so then Mitzvah and Mitzaras as well. They have differences, so why not count them apart? Mitzvah and Mitzaras nama chalukah tumasan. There are two experiences experienced differently in terms of how they conduct themselves when they are Mitzvah. The Mitzvah ton priya or prima. A man Mitzvah needs to let his hair grow. Prima tear his clothing. T'chsev b'gadav yu prumim. Roishi parua. V'aser. He can't engage with his wife. Things that don't apply to a woman mitzeras. Mitzeras ain't a tuna friya uprima. She doesn't have the hair thing and the clothing thing. The sani ain't li ela ish. So Brisa says, how do I know that the concept of mitzvah applies to a woman? Because the pasuk says ish tzaru. Perhaps only a man gets tzaras. Ain't ela ish a man. How do we know it applies to a woman as well? Kshuaymer. Vatzarua, cross-gender, alareyu, kanshnaim, it covers both man and woman. It came out to Malema Ish, so why does the pasuk highlight the man? Regarding certain particulars of conduct, nitka akasav inishal maila, Torah disconnected him from the primary discussion of Tumah, which means to say that the concept of Tumas Matzah applies to a man and a woman equally. But in certain respects, the man is disconnected and different. Nitka Kosim and Torah connected him from the upper discussion, the base discussion of the concept of Mitzvah, which applies equally to man and woman. L'nishomata, with respect to the discussion later on in the parsha, which means to say like this: Laimar to teach us, Ish Pareya Pirim, only a man has the Pareya Pirim obligations, Ve'enisha Paras Paramas, which doesn't apply to a woman. Enisha Paras Paramas. We find the pasuk. He has the obligation to separate from his wife, as opposed to her tent, and she doesn't have that obligation when she's a mitzvah. So once we see they're running different tracks, why don't we list them separately in the Mishnah? Count them as two. The answer is like this. In contrast to the Zav, Ikar to Muslim Chalukah, they're fundamentally distinct in the whole process of becoming tamei, so that's why they're certainly on different tracks. Mitzaras, however, ain't ikar tumasan chaluk. There's no real fundamental distinction in the way they become tamei and the essence of the tumah. Hayvai kegrisu, whether it's a man or woman, they become tamei if they see this mark, which is the size of a gris, a half of a bean. So in terms of becoming tamei, they're on the same turf. It's just that they have some minor variances in terms of conducting themselves during that tumah, so that's why they don't warrant their own listing. So Tanna Kamma listed 4. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, however, adds another 2. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Aimer ger mechusar kapara, the ger as well, and so is the Nazir. But Tanna Kamma, my time militoni ger. Why did Tanna Kamma include ger on the list? Because he runs a different system. Kiktani. Tanna Kamma only mentioned midam, a situation, a person who's bringing a carbon demishri lamechal bekach. The situation where the carbon is to give him access to eating carbonis. Ger, however, it's a whole different system. The objective is to join the community. Ger kikamaisi carbon. The reason why the ger is bringing the carbon is much more than that. To allow him to join our community. So it's a whole different system and belongs on its own. But Nazar, my time at Tony. What about the Nazar? Why wasn't that included? Once again, it's different. Safe. Ultimately, Nazar nami. Ki maisi carbon. The point of Nazar is to bring a carbon l'shtaril mishti yain dechulunu, to give him access to wine, which is regular material, not carbon material, which is typically the objective of the mechuzah kapara. So again, it's its own situation. L'mishti yain dechulunu. Rabbi Eliezer. Now Rabbi Eliezer held that even that qualifies. Give him access to wine. That's also considered mechuzah kapara. The Tani Nazar, who cited the Nazar on the list, l'mishri nafshi, where the purpose of the carbon is to allow him wine. So now comes a question. We have another one. Nisni nami, Nazar Tami. What about Nazar Tami? who became tamei and aborted his experience and had to count his days and bring a carbon now. That's also a form of mechusar kapara. So why isn't that on the list for a total of 7 cases now? The answer is, even Rabbi ben Yaakov agrees that's out of the way. That's its own track. Kika ma'isi carbon lameichel alei niziris bataru. By the nazir tamei, the point of the carbon is not to give him access to wine. He's actually recounting. He's starting the clock anew. He's starting to become a new nazir. So the point of the carbon is to lameichel, to activate upon him this new nazir. So it's really a whole different system, and is not on our list. Tanu Rabbana, speaking about the ger. Ger mu'ukev lechal b'kashim. A ger cannot eat a carbon. Achiyavi kinoi. So even though he had milah and he had tefillah, he has to bring his pair of birds, which in this case are both carbon oila. Let's say he brought one of the birds in the morning and processed it. That very evening he eat karbanos, meaning that although he has to bring both, so he has an outstanding ballast, but one is enough to give him access to karbanos throughout the day. He doesn't have to wait until tonight. It just means to say, in the meantime, one is enough. Kol HaKiddush B'Torah, interesting. Typically, a pair of birds in the Torah is usually a chatas and an oila. Echad chatas, v'echad oila. Kan, here by the ger, shtei and oilas. They're both oilas. Let's say instead of a pair of birds, he decides, I'm bringing a nice chunky animal as an oila. That works, instead of 2 birds. Oila b'shlam yatsa. Likewise, if he decides to bring an oila and a shlamim, great. Mincha shlamim la yatsa. But instead of oila, he brings a mincha with a shlam, even though he added a shlamim, a bonus. No, that doesn't work. Lo yamru kan ela lahakal. We don't insist on a bird. The bird is the pair of birds is to make it easier for him, but he can bring an animal oil as well. Ask the Gemara why. So here for all the sources, why mincha shlam la yatsa? Why mincha and shlam doesn't work? The pasuk by the ger says he's meant to do just as you did. You meaning Klal Yisrael, way back by Har Sinai when you became Yidden. Mayatem oila shlam, just like when you became a Yid. You had an oila and a shlam, afger, oila shlam likewise. A ger, oila shlam, kain. If that's the case, we should be obligated to bring an oila and a shlamim, not just a oila or a pair of oila birds. So why is it enough to bring one oila animal? The KosherTub is meant to follow your example. You can say like this. If we allow even a bird, as we'll see later, so if a pair of birds work, certainly an animal works. Which means to say, he need not add a shlamim as well. So he has a choice, 2 options, either a full animal oila or a pair of birds, but oila is enough. If that's the case, afilu mincha nami. So for allowing all kinds of other alternatives, even a mincha should work instead of an oila. Miet kra kain. The pasuk says kain yasa, as is. He's got to follow your example, your precedent. It has to be some living being, an animal or bird. How do you know to include a bird? Maybe only animals, like Klal Yisrael did real animals. We have a brayso, KosherTub. He's meant to follow your example. Just like you do shlam, he as well. He's meant to do the same as you. What about a bird? Can he substitute a bird for the animal? How do you know to include a bird? Which indicates a bird oil. Why? Hashem, it's completely offered to Hashem without anything going to the Kohanim. That only applies to an oila bird, because even by an animal oila, the hide goes to the Kohanim. Hashem, give an example of something which is totally consumed, totally given to Hashem. An oila bird. So there's a choice in the matter. You can bring a behema, an oila, or a pair of oila birds. What about a mincha, which is also completely put on the mizbeach? We have minchas nesachim, completely with that. No. As you did, so we have an exception. We only allow the either the animal oil or the bird oil, not a mincha, because Klal Yisrael didn't bring mincha type karbanos there. It was an animal form. It was a balchai, so either an animal or bird. Tanidach, we have another price. Let's continue just a little bit till we finish this topic. So the ger is meant to offer his carbon. Shemeani, kol she'el isha. So asa isha means any type of fiery offering. I feel mincha, maybe even a mincha. No, he's got to follow your example. Kasha ta'asu, ken yaseh, just like you did back in Har Sinai. You brought a carbon, a malchai, him as well. Ma'atem mine damim, just like you offered the blood-related sacrifices. Afheim mine dam, likewise the ger, as opposed to a mincha. Ma'atem oila u'shlam afheim oila shlam. Perhaps just like you brought oila and a shlam, as the psukim there indicate. So perhaps the ger needs both. Hamalei mar kochem kageriyeh. Lochem yikashtiv v'lo lekaber nesechem. He's meant to emulate your process, the way you enter the covenant. So meaning, the full correlation between the ger and yourself only relates to things which are personal. The bris milah, right, tvila. But regarding other matters which aren't directly on the person, such as a carbon, it doesn't have to be 100% a copy. So an oil is enough. And again, it makes more sense to be an oil which is completely offered completely to Hashem. Rabbi Aimer, he has another drush on this pasuk. Kochem means he follows your example. Kavisechem, like your forefathers. Ma visechem lo nichnasu labris el b'milah u'tvilah arsas dam. Just like your forefathers entered the covenant at Har Sinai through milah, immersion in the mikvah, through offering of blood of a carbon. The same with the ger. Afheim, likewise the future converts. Lo yikonsu labris. How did they enter the covenant? El b'milah u'tvilah arsas dam. So we've concluded that a mincha doesn't work. He needs to be an oila, either a behema or a bird. Now, perhaps just like by the balchai, one is enough. But by the behema, one's enough. Perhaps one bird is enough as well. Actually, you can't suggest one bird. We never find such a concept. We never find a single bird offering. And the point of the bird is to make it easier for him. Ask the Gemara, really? One bird doesn't work. A person could donate one bird. By the time we have a brisa back in Vayikra, Krivoi, he'll offer it. What's the point of the pasuk? Vishanamar b'torim, Vikriv. We find when it comes to describing the birds, it uses plural. Torim, Bnei Shemiani. Perhaps I can conclude you have to bring a pair only. Haymar like Harei oila. So a person donates, commits to a bird oila. Well, if it's mishnei praying, he has to bring two birds. Tamalayim v'krivoi. Singular. You can offer even one bird. So why not the same by the ger? One bird. Yeah, that's by a voluntary offering, but by a chayva, we never find the Torah that an obligatory carbon works with one bird. So you have to bring two. Really, we never find a single bird offering as an obligation. What about the woman who gives birth? Together with the animal oil, she brings a bird for a chatas. Because it comes along with the animal, with the sheep. So ultimately, it's a pair. We never find a chiyuv on one bird only. Hence, the ger, if he chooses to bring a bird, it has to be two. Okay, so we had the Mishnah, 4 examples of mechusar kapara. The zava, we explained why they're counted separately. We led us in mitzvah. Relaz ben Yaakov adds the ger and the nazir. And we explained the process of becoming a ger, milah, tvila, hatzaras damim, similar to the process that we experienced back in Har Sinai. We concluded that the chiyuv carbon has to be mine damim, blood-oriented, either an animal oil or a pair of birds, both oilos. All the best to you and atzlacha.